to Smashterpieces, a casual walk through the history of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. My name is Joe.
And my name is Matt.
And if you're new here, what we usually do on this show is we are playing one game for every character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate from 1984's Duck Hunt to 2019's Fire Emblem Three Houses. But this is a bonus episode, meaning it's not one that's representing a character. It's just a game we played and we're going to talk about. That's really all it comes down to.
Split between games that are kind of related to Smash Brothers and games that are new and just came out.
Yeah, that are also kind of related to Smash Brothers.
Usually.
This is the second of those categories because we are here to talk about and give a spoilery discussion about the 2021 Switch game Metroid Dread.
Which, by the way, I don't know if you had any particular reaction when this was announced at E3, but like...
I had heard the name. I had to explain it to my roommate.
Yeah, this kind of a big deal.
This game being real is weird.
And it's not just a game titled Metroid Dread either. According to Sakamoto, the producer of 2D Metroid, he claims that this is actually the original idea for Dread. They didn't just pull out the name and slap it on a new game. This is what Metroid Dread was always meant to be. And that is kind of unbelievable and frankly incredible.
All right, so I'm gonna hand you the talking stick for a while because while I played the whole thing on stream, you have beaten this game like 6 times in various different ways.
That is a gross underestimate. Metroid Dread. So you guys know I like Metroid, right? So
never heard you say that ever.
And in fact, over on Connectivity, we did another Nintendo World Report podcast. We did the Metroid Game Club, where in the lead up to Dread, we were playing through all of the 2D Metroids, and for the entire time, it was always me going like, "Oh yeah, this game's pretty good. It's too bad it's not as good as Super Metroid." And this game managed to actually get up there with Super Metroid. I still can't really decide which one's better. Like, by the day, I'll go back and forth and choose a different one. But it is on the same level without a doubt. And that is something that I thought was impossible, because a lot of Super Metroid and what makes it great is like the kind of thing that modern Nintendo isn't really about. It offers so much freedom in player exploration, in sequence breaking, in being incredibly challenging, in letting the player figure things out on their own, in having so many advanced techniques that the average player, frankly, probably will never even know about. And Metroid Dread has all of that. It is everything that I could have wanted in a 2D Metroid game. And I'm astonished that it exists, really. It's I don't think there's any such thing as a perfect game, and obviously there are things in Metroid Dread that if I had made the game I would do differently, but there is not a single place in the game's design where I feel like I expected more or like they fell short of my expectations. And that is frankly not something that a AAA game has done for me in a very, very long time. It is so uncompromisingly what I wanted, and I am blown away that it exists. It was easily my game of the year last year. I've replayed it so many more times than I'm able to count now. As soon as the Dread mode was patched in, where you take one hit and you instantly die, I immediately started playing that, and within 48 hours I had finished it. I love this game. This game is incredible.
For what it's worth, I think I like this one better than Super Metroid, having only played each of them once. So, There's that.
I can't even get mad at you for saying that, because
I mean, the third comparison I have is Fusion, and I like this so much better than Fusion.
Like, I might like this better than Super Metroid. I don't know. Like, it's really that good.
So the thing with Super Metroid and with Metroid Fusion, more so Fusion than Super Metroid, that I think puts Dread above it for me is pretty much like, I hated like all the boss fights in Fusion, and a lot of it was because I didn't feel like I had the range of movement abilities that the game seemed to think I should. And Dread fixed that like 100%. Like, there's a lot of movement abilities. You can actually, like, you can do so much more than you could in Fusion. And, like, I don't know how else to explain. I don't know if that makes sense. But it's Dread is one of those that just, it feels cool to move in. For the most part. It
absolutely does. And they've added so much to the Metroid kit, where Samus can slide, and she can use that to quickly get through lower spaces. And they are so confident in how much that affects the game that it takes forever to get the Morph Ball. Like,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure like you took 4 streams to play it. I think we got the Morph Ball at like the end of your second stream.
Maybe. Might have been the beginning of the third. I don't really remember.
It was like, it's late. It's late in there. And there is the flash shift, which was added, which is like literally just like a flash step out of, like, I don't even know what to compare it to. Like, you literally just like teleport across the room, and it's awesome. Moving around in Metroid Dread is so cool.
Yeah, and I just, that's not a feeling I got from Super Metroid. Like, Super Metroid, I think, is great. It's well designed and all that, but I think that's more the level design than like anything else. Super Metroid is very well designed in terms of environments and stuff like that, whereas Metroid Dread is still very well designed, but then also has like great movement tech that feels good to do.
I would say that I do get that feeling from Super Metroid, but only when I'm doing like sort of advanced and probably unintended techniques, like the way that you can just abuse the wall jump to go anywhere in Super Metroid, and how you can quickly go into a morph ball while jumping and use that momentum to get into small spaces you're not supposed to be able to get to. Stuff like that. I feel like Super Metroid does have those options, but Metroid Dread has them in your base kit that the average player is going to be able to use.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what it is, because, like, yeah, I know, like, speedrunners have figured out rad shit to do in Super Metroid, but I'm never going to be able to learn that. Nor do I really want to be perfectly honest. Like, I was able to Shine Spark in this game. I never got the hang of Shine Sparking in Super Metroid.
This game makes Shine Sparking really easy and incredibly fun.
Yeah, it's very well done. And at the end of the day, it's just Dread has the advantage of being a newer game with newer technology and things it can pull from this little genre you might have played a few indie games in called the Metroidvania genre.
Which, frankly, I'm learning more games take from Castlevania than Metroid.
Sorta. But, like, they're able to take lessons from games like that. Now, how many lessons do I think Sakamoto took from, I don't know, Hollow Knight? I don't know. I could not tell you.
There's a couple things that are suspiciously specifically from Hollow Knight.
I would like to believe that is a non-zero part of why this game, to me, feels better to play than Super Metroid, because it just has a billion places it can pull inspiration from, unlike Super Metroid, which had Metroid. And that's about it.
Yeah, it feels like the time that it took for them to get this game made was kind of to its benefit, because Metroidvania didn't really start taking off until the last few years, I would say. And
the last 5 or 6.
Yeah, but like considering how long ago like Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night were, that's a pretty shocking amount of time. And that's roughly around the time that Samus Returns was released too. And Samus Returns was kind of a big reason that I had a lot of apprehension going into Dread, because it was also made by Mercury Steam, who were the primary development studio for Dread. And they're unique in that they're the only studio in the world that has worked on both Metroid and Castlevania.
Oh, right. I forgot. They made a bad Castlevania game.
Mm-hmm. And that was another reason to be kind of worried about Dread, because, hey, they made bad Castlevania games.
No, they made a bad Castlevania game, and then they got thrown off of Castlevania.
I think they definitely made 2.
Did they make 2? I know they made Lords of Shadow 2, or Mirror of Fate, or whatever the fuck. But they didn't make the first Lords of Shadow, did they?
I feel like they did, but either way, they're the only.
Oh Christ, they did! Oh my God!
They're the only company that's worked on both, and I really wouldn't say they got the chance to make a real Metroidvania experience from Castlevania.
I mean, the one they did make was a God of War clone, and then they made a bad 2D one for 3DS, and then a sequel to the bad God of War clone. So no, I'd say probably not.
No. So, and
it is frankly an absolute miracle they got hired to do Metroid at all.
Well, it's funny because they had actually gone to Nintendo and pitched a remake of Fusion. And Sakamoto was more interested in remaking Metroid 2 because it was old and bad. And so they made Samus Returns, which I thought was added a lot of good things, but also didn't quite match up to what I wanted out of Metroid. But it was also a remake of a bad game that was very limited in what it was able to do.
Also, to keep it on Mercury Steam for just 1 second, this is unrelated. They released another game last year?
What game?
They did a remaster of American McGee Presents Scrapland. I've never heard of this game. I know of American McGee. I didn't know he made games that weren't Alice, but okay. Interesting.
I genuinely don't know what this is.
I've never heard of this game.
Like I'm looking at this and I have no concept for what I am looking at.
And they released it fucking like 2 months after
the original
Metroid.
Was their first game.
Wait, what? Oh my God, it was. Okay, that's kind of neat. Shame nobody's heard of it. They did Clive Barker's Jericho? Oh, heard that game's bad. Anyways, they made Samus Returns.
Yeah. Yeah, Samus Returns. The thing about that is that like I personally like AM2R better than Samus Returns because it just plays more to what I like about Metroid. But even AM2R has a lot of shit that I don't like in it because Metroid 2 just has a lot of shit I don't like in it. So Dread feels like Mercury Steam Unchained in a way where they get to really do something more on their own. And to some extent, I can kind of feel that like, you know, Sakamoto is the producer of Metroid, and he obviously has overseen the entire 2D Metroid series. But I think that there is a lot of Mercury Steam's own like experience and creative ideas in Dread, because there are so many ways where it just doesn't feel like things that Nintendo would be willing to do. And like even when you like just look at the way that the game has been patched post release, they have not patched out a single thing that is used in speedrunning, except for the one thing that they did where they explained their reasoning for it in the patch notes. Like, what the hell? Is this real? That's frankly unbelievable. They're purposefully leaving glitches in because they don't hurt the game experience and because they're good for speedrunning. So yeah, why not leave them in? But that's not Nintendo. What the hell?
So here's the question, though. The question that's on my mind. How long, if ever, before Nintendo just fucking buys Mercury Steam?
I mean, Nintendo doesn't do a lot of acquisitions.
Yeah, but they bought Next Level Games last year.
Yeah, after like 20 years.
Yeah.
It takes a while to be something that Nintendo's willing to purchase.
They made a well-selling Metroid game in the year of our Lord 2022.
I do not think Nintendo is going to buy Mercury Steam, but I seriously doubt this is the last time we're going to see a Mercury Steam Nintendo game. And frankly, I'm really interested in seeing where that goes next. Like, I would love another Metroid, but like anything that they make with Nintendo's help right now is like, yeah, I want to see that.
What could they make? What would, if you had to pick a non-Metroid IP to hand to them? What are you thinking?
I mean, as far as relatively dead Nintendo franchises that appeal to a more hardcore audience.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's what you were going to say. It's okay. We're on the same wavelength.
That's true. But so we're a little deep into the episode now, but we haven't even mentioned like the core gimmick, so to speak, of Dread, which is where its namesake comes from.
Where it fills you with dread whenever you walk into a certain room. A certain type of room, I should clarify.
Which are the robots that it calls Emmys, EMMI. Which are... They're like Resident Evil tyrants, basically, where they stalk you through an environment. And
they are way scarier than Mr. X ever was.
And if they catch you, you're probably dead.
The thing that's missing that would make them like more like Mr. X is if there were regular enemies in their areas. That, because like in Resident Evil 2 Remake, Mr. X can walk by zombies and he'll just fucking throw them to the, like, bash them to the side. And the enemies don't get to do that, mostly because it's implied that they already fucking killed everything that was in their section.
Kind of, because after you kill them, enemies start spawning in those rooms.
Yeah. So they were straight up murdering anything that was alive that walked into their presence.
And
so
there's the cutscene with the ice beam one where you like you see it just freeze something and just smash through it on the way.
Yeah.
And
they're all terrifying. I had names for most of them. I don't remember what a lot of them were. I know the water one was Ursula.
I feel like
fuck off.
I feel like these things were really good at making this into a horror game, basically. Because
they're what I wanted from Metroid Fusion. They're what I wanted the SAX to be.
Yeah, like that's kind of incredible in itself. And you can really see how this was the game that they wanted to make after Fusion, where they had this idea in the SAX that didn't pan out as fully as they wanted it to. So it turns into the Emmys, and you can kind of even extrapolate from there that is exactly why this game took so long, because they said that the hardware at the time just wasn't up for it, which obviously
this could not have fucking run on a GBA.
And then after that, the series was in decline, so they didn't have the resources to put into 2D Metroid.
But they didn't see it being in enough of a decline, so they made Other M just to make sure that it was kicked deeper into that grave.
Yeah, I guess they did.
They sure did.
Oh my.
Just the mention of Other M.
Yeah.
Psychic damage immediately.
Yeah.
What about some of the bosses in this game? I will warn you, I only know 2 of them by name. One of them is Kraid, and the other is the final boss.
I don't know many of them by name either. I think the scorpion thing is called Scorpius.
Of course it is. Sure, that's what it's called now. I just want to give a shout out to Kraid is given just as much respect as he is owed in this game, where Samus sees him and essentially does this, like, her body language is like, "Are you again? Really? Are you shitting me? Come on."
She doesn't even give him that much thought. Like, she enters this room and she takes a cautious stance and she's ready for anything. And then, like, you see it, like, the camera is from Kraid's point of view, so you don't see that it's him yet. Instead, the camera is focused on Samus and you just see her completely relax. And then pan out, surprise, it's Kraid. She does not react at all and just slowly raises her arm cannon and fires a charge shot into his face.
She essentially is like, "Oh, I thought it would be something threatening, like a large dog." A parrot who's been given cocaine, but nope, just Kraid.
Which, like, I don't know why Kraid's here. They never go into it at all. Here.
He just is. This is the first Metroid game I've played where there's not a Ridley boss fight. I'm kind of shocked about that.
There's not a lot of those. There's very few.
How many? Is it just this one?
Prime 2 doesn't have Ridley.
Okay. So there's 2 of them.
Metroid 2 didn't have Ridley.
Did Samus Return add him?
Samus Returns does.
Nice.
Which is, like, stupid, but whatever. This isn't a Samus Returns cast, so I'm not going to complain about that. I'll complain about that in, like, 10 years when we do a bonus episode on Samus Returns.
We'll see. I won't be able to buy it on 3DS soon.
Yeah.
That'll age some things. But yeah, Dread's just good. It's a good game. I don't have a ton more to say about it except for that the final boss is fucking rad.
Yeah. So overall, I really like the boss fights.
I think most of them are good. I don't like the Flappy Bird one. That's the only one I can remember just straight up not liking.
I kind of do like that one. I think that it's got this really cool set piece to it. Although there are a lot of places in it where I take damage that I, like, never really realized until Dread mode. I would say the boss that I don't like would probably be the water one. I think his name is like Dragaiga or something. Because he's just kind of boring. Like, there's a glitch you can use to skip him, and I've used that every single time since I've learned it. I just don't care about fighting that guy. And the electric, like, flying bug thing, you had a lot of trouble with.
Yeah, but I don't think that's because the boss is bad. It was just I kept having trouble, like, figuring it out, I guess. I have vague memories of it. I do know that I struggled with it, and I can picture it in my head, but I don't exactly remember why.
Which, that's actually a boss that if you sequence break and get the screw attack, you can just screw attack him to death.
Good.
And then that's it. The final boss, though, yeah, that fight's incredible.
Fight with Ravenbeak is probably the best boss fight in any Metroid game I have played so far. Bar none, 100%.
Like, I kept saying, like, I'm so mad that like, there was no chance for me to even hope for this guy to be in Smash Brothers. It's like he came right after Sora was announced. I don't even think Sora was released yet.
I don't think so either.
It's just, like, no chance to even hope. But, like, yeah, that is the coolest boss fight in the franchise.
And it's also, like, super long, and there's no checkpoints in it. And usually for me, that kind of boss is kind of frustrating, but I enjoyed fighting that guy pretty much from start to finish.
It's awesome, and there's so much you need to do for it too. Like, you need to really learn the patterns. You need to know when you need to, like, be sliding. You need to figure out exactly where his counter opportunities are. You need to, like, be pretty good at the space jump, which maybe you don't even have the space jump if you skipped that. You need to be able to wall jump and then flash shift over him. There's so much to do in that fight. There's not a moment to rest, and that is what I think is really cool. Like there's just no time for you to be relaxed. And all of the boss fights in this game like really succeed at a matter of you're not sitting around and waiting for the opportunity to attack them. You are constantly able to attack them, and you need to decide when it is safe to do so, because they are always vulnerable. There is not a moment for most of these bosses where you can't hit them, which is kind of why I don't like Dragaiga, because it's not true about him. And like the result is that you start trying to figure out where you can take risks, and that makes the boss even more engaging. And it's like, for the most part, they don't really have that much health. They don't take that long. Instead, the difficulty comes from the fact that they can do a lot of damage to you. So it becomes a matter of, instead of forcing you to be on this really long marathon fight that just takes way too long,
Castlevania.
Which Metroid also has a couple problems with this, especially Metroid Prime. But
Circle of the Moon is the worst I've experienced.
Circle of the Moon was pretty fucking terrible with this, yeah. But like Metroid is guilty of this sometimes, and in Dread that never happens. And I like that a lot, where instead of being a test of how long you can put up with this boss's bullshit, it's a test of how few mistakes can you make in the time that it takes to take them down. And that time is like 3 minutes. It's just any mistake is very costly, but then you get right back into it. And because those fights are so short, as long as you play well, it's like losing to them doesn't cost you a lot. It's just a matter of learning the fight and getting good at the fight. And the length of time that it will take you to get past the boss fight is dependent on how quickly you learn it and how good you get at it, instead of how patient you are, or oops, that one death just costs you 20 minutes. Each individual death costs so little time that it doesn't feel as bad when you have a death. And that, I think, is what is where the best boss fights in the most difficult games come from. That's the kind of difficulty that I want. And this game does that so well. It's incredible. Like I don't know how to talk about this game without just being like, oh my god, it's so good.
You could shoot a gun. I agree that like 100%. I think I have a reputation amongst our friend group of getting frustrated with games way too easily, especially when they're more challenging games. But like a big part of it is I died. I lost 10 minutes of progress just now. I guess I'll do it again. And Dread doesn't have that. When you die in a boss, it spawns you in front of the door. Boom. Mm-hmm. Go. If you die to an Emmy, it spawns you at the door you walked in through. Boom. Like, every game like this should have that. All of them. I don't give a fuck. All of them.
It really handles that difficulty curve well, where it keeps that difficulty from feeling punishing, because it might take you a long time to get through an area, but each individual time you fail, you lost like 10 seconds of progress. Probably more than 10 seconds, but it's not like in a game where like you'll be fighting through a gauntlet of a really difficult area, and then just before you get to the end, it's ruined and you just wasted 15 minutes. And that distinction matters.
Well, like for me, it's mostly because, okay, so all the time I'm going to have to spend to get back to the boss, I'm losing muscle memory by the second. Losing it by the second. being able to jump directly back into a fight, I build muscle memory a lot faster. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the main sort of advantage to having this type of autosave. I would probably think much lesser of this game if it did what other Metroid games do, and you always spawn at the last save room you used. I don't think I'd think it was a bad game. I just, I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much.
I've seen some people say that they prefer the tension of like, oh, I gotta get back to the save room, or else like the victory is lost and I have to do it all again. And I don't think that's good tension, because that's not real tension. Like, you're not thinking about getting to a save room in real life after you get out of a life or death experience.
I mean, says you.
It's a matter.
Just haven't found a save room in real life.
Like, it's a matter of like a cooldown period where you start to be like, okay, I'm calming down after this intense experience. And that is what I think is better. I don't think you're better for having like a stretch of gameplay that is frankly very mundane and easy and simple being an intense experience. I don't think there's a lot to be gained there. And that's why the gameplay loop in Dread feels so good, because it knows how to handle that tension, and it knows when to pull back and be more subdued.
Yeah. I agree.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on the game's plot, because this is some fan servicey Metroid bullshit.
The Chozo stuff is cool. When Samus speaks Chozo, that was cool.
That was like the coolest moment ever. That was awesome.
It was a really good cutscene.
Like,
and also just the cutscene of her just fucking annihilating Ravenbeak is great as well.
And screaming.
If only she showed emotion.
If only.
The joke is that she shows a lot of emotion.
And there was a bad think piece from a major publication that said, if she just smiled more. Which,
actually doesn't make any sense for two reasons. One, what about this situation makes you think she'd be smiling? Smiling to what?
Okay, they said more than that, but it was still like it was a joke of an article.
And the other, but I'm going to tear down the straw man I've built in my head. God, it's like you've never been on the internet. And two, you can't fucking see her mouth.
But also, her animation in this game is fantastic. It says a lot with the little it has.
We just fucking finished talking about the Kraid cutscene and how you can 100% figure out how she feels about Kraid just from her body language.
Yeah,
she doesn't say anything. That just happens.
Body language is a very important part of animation, and it's just like, were you just not looking? Like, what the fuck? And in that cutscene where Quiet Robe is killed, and afterwards, she just has a moment of just staring at his body, and it's she doesn't need to say anything. It's very obvious that
it's very obvious that she's thinking, man, that's my fourth dad.
and there is a lot said about Samus's character just through that body language, and I feel like this is the best that her characterization has ever been, because in the moments where she needs to be, she's very cool and very powerful, but then they are also able to portray that sense of fear and unease over what is happening without taking away that power from her.
Which is something that Other M could really have used.
Sure could have.
Oh, boy. And also, I wouldn't say, even aside from all that, I don't understand how you can look at Samus and be like, oh, she's just emotionless. No, she's efficient. Things are happening. She's got to do things.
Yeah, we're on the clock.
She's efficient. She doesn't have time to break down into a fucking crying heap every time one of her dads dies. By the end of this game, she's lost 5.
What should she do? Accept her helplessness?
Giving Adam a voice in this game is weird. His voice is weird.
Little bit. I didn't expect him to just be a computer voice, and I don't know why I didn't.
I mean, I didn't either, mostly because when we think of AI in super future space worlds, they don't usually sound like that.
I think of, like, Halo.
Yeah. The only like comparison I can think where it does sound like that is Wall-E. So basically what I'm saying is Wall-E inspired Metroid Dread.
We should all strive for that, I think. We should all be inspired by Wall-E.
I am inspired by Wall-E. It's dangerous to be inspired by Wall-E. Remember, he takes that fire extinguisher and he like flies through space. If I did that, I'd die. But everything else that Wall-E does, I'm pretty sure I'd be able to do.
There is a Wall-E video game, if you want to do another bonus episode.
No. You dare besmirch the name of Wall-E on this show by bringing up the shovelware games they made? A false idol? You should smile more.
I was about to say, I wasn't expecting this bit to go in this direction. I don't know where to take it.
I don't know where to take anything now. Metroid Dread's good. That's the whole point. It's a good game, and you should play it if you haven't played it yet.
Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, there is the elephant in the room. Of usually, you can pretty much split these podcasts into 2 segments.
Yeah. That ain't gonna happen here. Music in this game is not bad, but wholly unmemorable.
It's a little unfortunate that all that praise that I give the game has to have that asterisk of, there is one place that it's kind of disappointing.
It didn't even get an honorable mention on OSC for Best of 2021. There's just nothing. There's nothing.
Before we started, I skimmed through the entire soundtrack trying to find a single song to bring up. And like the closest I can come up with is like the credits music, because I guess it's actually a song.
Well, because it's the same as, like, I don't know if there's any other games on our list here. It's more focused on, like, building atmosphere through sound design than it is being a catchy song. And there's value in that. I think
that's true, but like the other Metroid games also do that while still having very good and memorable songs.
Well, the other Metroid games aren't on a system where they could just make creepy sounding music.
What about Metroid Prime? One of the songs in that game was so memorable, they used it 3 more times.
Metroid Prime isn't real.
Cheating. That song's from Super Metroid.
Japan says that game's not real.
That's true.
That is true. Yeah, I think the sound design is really good. It's just there's nothing that we could pull out and be like, this is a pretty good song, because there isn't really any songs. Yeah, it's kind of like Twin Snakes.
I feel like even the boss music,
better.
Even the boss music should be good songs, because like that's not atmospheric. That's supposed to be like the high intensity moment, and it's just whatever. Like, it's fine. I don't notice that it's bad when I'm playing the game or listening to it. It's just, it's there.
I forget, is Nightmare in this game?
No.
Okay. For some reason, I had like this vague memory of it.
You might be thinking of Other M.
So there you go. That's why. All of the the two bosses that have good boss music in the series aren't in this game. I solved it.
There's got to be at least one more.
I solved it. It's Nightmare and it's Ridley, and those are the two bosses that have good music in 2D Metroid. I don't know about 3D. I'm only like 3 hours into Metroid Prime. I don't even think Mother Brain has good music.
I don't think Mother Brain has music.
So I've solved why it's like this. You're welcome. I will take my payment in cash.
But what about, like, Green Brinstar theme from Super Metroid?
That's
like,
not a boss fight theme.
No, but what I'm saying, like
no, you said we're talking about boss fights now.
I'm talking about both. There is good music in Metroid, just not in this game.
Those were all on GBA's and SNES's, where atmosphere didn't exist. There's no atmosphere on the SNES. It's why Samus has to wear the spacesuit. Keep up.
Yeah, and then Metroid Prime had good music.
Yeah, that's because England.
Explain that one.
Retro Studios, aren't they in England?
No.
Oh, they're in California, aren't they?
No.
Where the fuck are they?
Texas.
That's about as far from California and England as you could get. That was about as wrong as it could possibly be on that one, huh?
Well, when we do the Metroid Prime episode, you need to confidently say that they're in Texas. So that's everyone's first impression.
That's an Easter egg for those of you who are listening to the bonus episodes too. Evergreen content. I legitimately don't have anything else to say about it. I figured this episode was going to mostly be you, because I played it once and thought it was pretty good, and you have played it more times than years you've been alive. So
that's probably not true, but it's not as false as it should be.
Yeah, that's why I said it.
This game's very good.
All right, anyways, if you want to follow us on Twitter or on Facebook, well, not on Facebook. I think I'm actually going to delete the Facebook page. Let me start this.
Everyone should delete their Facebook page.
Everybody should delete their Facebook page. If you want to follow us on Twitter or on YouTube, you can find us on Smashterpieces. Both of those websites. The Twitter is where we talk about things and announce when we're streaming. The YouTube is where all the stream VODs go. And all the regular episodes, bonus episodes, don't go on YouTube. They're a special treat just for you, our audio feed listeners.
I mean, technically, YouTube is also an audio feed because we don't have video on it, but
YouTube doesn't get the bonus episodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Pixels. You can follow me on Twitter at StringPixel. You can follow Matt at Grimace2Menace. You can follow our editor, Peter, over at Pete Speakeasy. And I do a show with Peter called Original Sound Chat, where we talk about music, usually when the games have good music, unlike Metroid Dread. And
but like Super Metroid.
But like Super Metroid. In fact, I've done Super Metroid on OSC. And Peter's done Metroid Prime on OSC. So, you could go check that out. I don't think there's anything else I need to say. We're a production of Nintendo World Report. You should go visit them.
And in fact, I mentioned it earlier, but the NWR Connectivity Podcast, we have a Metroid Game Club series of episodes. So if you want to hear even more about 2D Metroid and Metroid Dread specifically, we've got an episode over there on every single 2D Metroid.
And Matt's on a lot of connectivity, both there and outside of it. I've been on 2.
I've been on a few of them.
Yeah. It's a fun podcast. You should go listen to Neil and John. Because you won't hear John's name on this show for a real long time. But Neil already got his. So all right. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.